Lessons, everybody. Here we are, Luke part 1, lesson number 3, video number 5. This is the last one. We're going to hurry through this, okay, to where you get the synopsis of the entire lesson and what's happening. We're seeing several examples of just the life of Jesus and what he did. We see Jesus healing a leper in the city in Galilee. What's interesting about that, the leper said, "Lord, you can heal me if you want to, if you desire." And he said, "I desire to." And he reached out and he touched him, which would have made him ceremonially unclean. Jesus, I'm speaking of. In other words, you don't touch a leper. The law was very, very clear about that. And then he told the leper not to tell anybody about this, but to go to the priest and to show himself and to go through what the law referred to as the proper way to establish that you were now clean, that you were no longer leprous. I believe the idea behind that is that Jesus didn't come to break the law. He came to fulfill the law. He was honoring the law. Crowds were starting to hear what was happening with Jesus. They were gathering around him, but he would always seek a place of seclusion at the end of the day. As we saw in our last lesson, he would want to be with the Father and spend time in prayer. Pharisees and the law teachers from Galilee, Judea, Jerusalem, they came to hear, they came to see Jesus. They were coming from all over the place. In one of these gatherings, the place was so packed that nobody could get in where Jesus was. And so a paralytic was brought by his friend. You saw the account. And the friend let the paralytic in through the roof, and the Lord looked at him and told him what? Your sins are forgiven. Well, that's great, but that's not the reason he came. He was paralyzed. He wanted to move. Well, the Jewish leaders were having a fit, right? Because they were saying that he was blaspheming and doing all this kind of thing. But there was a tremendous contrast here between what the thoughts were of the Jewish leadership and the faith of the man and his friends. That's the picture that we're seeing right here. Because when Jesus tells the man that his sins are forgiven, that's the most important thing, not the fact that he couldn't move. Then the Lord looks at him and says, well, which is easier, to forgive or to heal? You know, the Pharisees were thinking, well, only God can heal. Is this guy saying he's God? He must be saying that he's God. Jesus says to him, rise, and he did. They were all astonished. They were amazed. You see that phrase over and over. They're astonished, they're amazed. Well, Jesus leaves from there, and while he's walking along, he looks over and sees a tax gatherer. And the tax gatherer's at work. He's in his booth. Jesus looks at him and says, come. And he did. And, you know, for years I thought these were sort of like cold calls, but they really weren't. The people were hearing about what Jesus was doing. They were seeing it. And when he said, come, they did. Well, the tax gatherer's name was Levi. You saw in Matthew that his name is Matthew. Levi threw a big party. Well, he invited all of his friends, the other tax gatherers, and all the sinners, and they came, and Jesus came. Of course, the Jewish leaders complained, but Jesus looked at them and said, you know, I didn't come for the sick. I came for the unrighteous. Okay, I'm sorry, he did come for the sick. I misspoke there. He said, I came for the sick, and I came for the unrighteous, not for those who aren't sick. Okay? Not for those who are already righteous. You keep on pressing on in that. Same today. You know, so often we sit there and we look and say, well, that's not exactly the type of person I thought Jesus came for. Well, he loves everybody, and he came for everybody. Last thing we saw is that Jesus was questioned about the lack of fasting among those that were his disciples, the ones that were following him. And people said, well, John's disciples fast and the Jews fast, and why don't yours? Well, Jesus told them, you don't fast while the bridegroom is there. He closes the 5th chapter with a parable. And it's actually a parable with 2 or 3 segments in it about new and old cloth, new and old wine. The bottom line with this is that the new and old are not compatible. And the new and old are not compatible. We are new creatures. And since we are new creatures as believers, we are in the old flesh, yes, but we're to put that flesh to death every day. So anyway, I thank you for your faithfulness. I'll see you again next time in Lesson 6. Lesson 6? Lesson 5, I think. We'll see which one it is. Bye-bye.